Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Ooh, that's loud. Okay, now we're all awake. Sorry for the wait. As usual in the afternoon, we have to make up for the time that's being lost earlier. But I can promise you that this session is going to be slightly different from all the others you've attended so far. It's called Transport Innovation Talks. As the name suggests, we will be looking at new innovative ways to analyze and comprehend transport systems, how they work or don't work, how they should work. And we can look forward to 5 speakers who each in his own way think out of the box, and they're willing to share their thoughts with us. So the next 60 minutes should not only be informative, giving you food for thought, but hopefully also quite entertaining. Now, 5 speakers in 1 hour. That is quite a task already, so I will keep it very short. Let me just briefly also mention that we will not have the usual Q&A session. Maybe we have the chance for 1 or 2 questions, but maybe not. If you do want to have a chat with our speakers, you can do so after this session, because there will be a break, and I understand that each one of them will make himself available to take questions from you afterwards and the break. Okay, then we start with our first speaker. His name is Carlo Ratti. He's an architect and engineer, and from what I've heard, he's also a visionary. He practices in Italy, teaches at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where he directs the Sense-Able City Laboratory. And I looked it up on the internet just to get an idea what that could possibly be about, and it mentioned something about that what they're doing there is merging digital and physical realms by understanding how we sense and act on our built environment. I presume we're talking about cities here mostly, and of course how these cities now talk back to us. If I'm wrong, he will correct me up here, so please give a round of applause to Carlo Ratti.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just got a few minutes to share with you some of the things we're doing at MIT at the Sensible City Lab. And, you know, I'm Italian, so I wanted to start with this picture because everybody in Italy grows up with this picture in their bedroom. But the reason is that something interesting happened in Formula One over the past 15, 20 years. 20 years ago, if you wanted to win a race, you needed a good car and a good driver. Today, if you want to win a race, you need something like this. A system made of thousands and thousands of sensors onto the car, collecting information in real time, sending the information to those computers, and making decisions in real time. In other terms, that's what as engineers we call the real-time control system. That's a system composed of a sensing side and an actuating side, collecting information and then responding to that. You know, sensing and actuating is really what every dynamic system does. It's also what we all do. When we meet each other, we sense each other, we collect information about each other, and then we respond to that. So, well, the amazing thing we believe today is that our cities, for the first time, are becoming like real-time control systems. They're starting to behave like that Formula One racing car. And, just a couple of words, why cities are important. Well, 250, 75, 80, just 4 numbers, 2% of the Earth's crust, 50% of the world's population, 75% of energy consumption, 80% of CO2 emissions. So if we're able to do something to make them work better, in particular in terms of transportation, then that can be a big deal. Well, what is this then? What is the consequence of all this sensing and actuation at the urban scale? We think it's a bit what an exhibition at MoMA recently explored. The theme, the title was Talk to Me, is that for the first time, our cities, our environments are starting to talk back to us. Now, it's almost as if every atom out there, the physical world, were becoming both a sensor and an actuator. Or in other terms, you can think it's like, Michelangelo's old dream when he sculpted the Mose. So the story goes, he took a hammer, threw the hammer at the Mose and shouted, "Perché non parli? Why don't you speak?" And today, for the first time, thanks to these technologies, our cities are starting to speak back to us. And just want to share with you a few projects about sensing and actuation, how today we can understand better what's happening in the city. In terms of movement, we're talking about transportation, but also supply chain. In this case, we took waste. We decided to put, tags on waste to see what happens to it. Sometimes this is what happened to all computers. So we had to design the tag, and then deploy it. That's the first deployment we did in Seattle, tagging a lot of waste, a lot of trash. And then in a similar way to when you go to hospital, they put a tracer in your blood and they follow it through your body. We started following all those pieces of trash through the city, see how they were moving. That's a day of deployment in Seattle. You see after a few days, a lot of them go to landfills next to Seattle. But then a big surprise. Actually, nobody expected this, how far things were moving. Especially e-waste, cell phones, what's called tech trash, cartridges, still moving after a month. And if you look at it, sometimes in a very clumsy way, like this tray is going from Seattle to Chicago and then down to Baja California. So how much energy we would actually save by optimizing transportation on this system? Well, for us, this project was, we thought the Farewell Symphony was the music we needed. For us, this project was 2 or 3 things. So the first thing, it was about understanding these traces and then see if we could optimize the system. The second thing was, how this could promote behavioral change, give this information to people, and they might change their behavior. One of the most telling things was an email we got at the end of the project, somebody who said, before I used to drink water in plastic bottles and throw them away, and I thought they would disappear. Now, they don't disappear. They just go a few miles from home, and they stay there forever. So now I don't drink it. I don't drink bottled water anymore. And then there's a third kind of consequence of the project that was completely unexpected, but it happened when actually some burglars came to our lab at MIT, installed a lot of stuff, including some of the tags that report their location. And here's what happened. When I have 5 minutes left and 3 minutes left. So, this was just to share with you how today we can trace movement, transportation in a different way. We're working in many other ways. This is a project we're doing in the United States with AT&T. We're using data from the cell phone network to describe a phenomenon that's very poorly understood. Is what we call extreme commuting. People who commute to New York City, to Los Angeles from hundreds and hundreds of kilometers away. And what you see here is actually the United States, the map of the United States with the main cities. We've been using the same type of data from the cell phone network to see what's going on in a city. That was actually in 2006, the city of Rome. You see the Colosseum, the river. It was during the final of the soccer World Cup. And look at what happened in the city by looking at data anonymized and aggregated from millions of phones before the match, people moving in the city. Match begins, silence. France scores, Italy scores. Halftime, people make a quick call. And then second half, end of normal time. And then first overtime, second, Zidane, some of you might recall the headbutt, and then Italy won. And then everybody goes to the center to celebrate, and then you see the following day again, the winning team and the people meeting here. And then by the end of the day, everybody went here to a place called Circo Massimo, where since Roman times, people go celebrate, and you see a big peak at the end of the day over here. That's just the basic information, but actually if you analyze it more, you can get a sense of pedestrians. So what you see here in red is pedestrians in the city, and you can see buses and taxis, and you see if there's a good match between the population, people waiting for a bus, and actually the offer of public transportation, and how you can dynamically match the two in a better way. That led to what we are doing in Singapore now, where we are really combining many layers of information. The idea is imagine a living city, where you know in real time everything that's happening in the city, and you can share this information with citizens, with everybody. So again, it's about real-time information about people. It's about energy consumption. You got energy and temperature, and actually when the temperature goes up in Singapore, you increase the energy because of air conditioning. Special events again, how the city behaves and responds during emergencies, or the Formula One racing here. Even something simple like, taxis and rain. It's impossible to find a taxi when it rains, but if you combine this information in real time, actually you can give a good service to citizens and to taxi drivers. How the city expands and shrinks during the day because of transportation. And then how actually this connects with all the global flows of people coming in the city, out of the city, people and goods, containers and planes going into the city, and how all of this mixes the global scale and the local transportation scale. Well, in the last few minutes, in Singapore, we're also developing new interfaces with the transport authority to see how all this data can actually be used and manipulated in real time. So there's some of the things we're doing with them. So it becomes really a way to touch the data, to visualize the data, to manipulate it, kind of a data browser. And in the last few minutes, I wanted to show with you something about actuation. How do you get the response in the city? So one way is really give this information to people. That's a project we're doing with Audi, trying to think about a seamless way to give real-time information back to the car. So imagine, again, you know everything about the city in real time, and how can you browse it while you are in your car? So the idea is that the dashboard can become almost like an interface between the inside and the outside, trying to be seamless, so you don't need to, you can still look at the road, you don't need to look at other things, but you get all of this in front of you. You simply control it with hand gestures. So just move your hands and you browse it. And then it's almost like the real estate on your dashboard can change and expand and shrink based on the real-time information and what you need at the time. And another way is actually to develop iPhone apps. That's a project we're doing with SNCF in France about looking at CO2 emissions. And we found a way actually to get CO2 emissions in real time with no user input. So basically, if you look at this, it's how a cell phone sees you based on the sensors in the cell phone. And if you look at that, then you are able to tell if somebody's on a bus, is walking his bike, or in the metro. And then you can do an automated way of detecting mode of transportation and give it to us at the end of the day to see if, again, is something that might promote behavioral change. And the final thing I wanted to share with you is a project in Copenhagen where, the mayor called us and said, can we do something with transportation in Copenhagen? As you know, transportation in Copenhagen looks like this. It was a lot of cars a few decades ago. It's now a lot of bicycles. So we came up with this idea.
Welcome to the Copenhagen wheel. The wheel that turns your ordinary bike into a smart electric hybrid. Quickly and easily, with no additional batteries or wires. The Copenhagen wheel allows you to capture the energy dissipated while braking and cycling, and save it for when you need a bit of a boost. Controlled through your smartphone, the Copenhagen wheel becomes a natural extension of your everyday life. The Copenhagen wheel is your personal trainer, sensing your effort level and providing you with real-time feedback about your fitness and exercise goals. The Copenhagen wheel also enhances your experience of the city. It connects you with things a cyclist wants to know: upcoming traffic congestion, road conditions, and pollution levels. Choose to keep your data or share it with your friends and other cyclists through social networks like Facebook. As you ride, you also collect green miles. It's similar to a frequent flyer program, but good for the environment. Elegant, responsive, smart. A new mode of transport for a rapidly changing world. So turn on your life and turn on the city. The Copenhagen wheel.
And here is the wheel, actually the previous mayor of Copenhagen with the wheel. Now it's the third iteration of engineering, and it's going to market soon. Here is Mayor of Copenhagen, Mayor of Toronto trying it out, but I'll finish in a second. All right, I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carlo. We'll have to switch some technicalities. How long will it take? Long enough to take... we can take one question, if you have a question for Mr. Ratti. Because when I was just listening to the last comment, the mayor of Toronto going on about, even giving you information on the air quality, I sort of wonder how many people would still want to ride their bicycle through cities when they're aware of the air quality.
That's a good point. But actually, we did I think. Can you still hear me? Yeah. But actually, we did a test about collecting data, and there's something quite interesting because today you get air quality information. You get it in cities, but usually you measure in a few points, and then those points not necessarily represent the whole city. Some of you might recall a few years ago there was a kind of a debate in Madrid because the mayor was claiming that the air quality was getting better and better, till when somebody discovered actually he was moving the air quality measurement points more and more into parks. And actually, if you do this, if you have a way that we can measure actually air quality very close to us, we can both measure exposure as persons, but also just with a few bikes, we did a test, and with just 10 bikes, you map the whole city, and you got a wealth of data that you couldn't get in any other way. So it becomes a very easy way to collect urban information.
Now, this is a lot of data you collect there, and I will drop my question, which was very important, but I'm sure yours is even more important. I believe we have microphones here. If not, just come. Don't be shy, and I'll give you mine.
Thank you, Bernard Ensing from the European Cyclist Federation. Did I understand well that where you showed that maybe via GSMs you can measure if you are sitting in the bus or walking or cycling? And do you have a system to calculate the model split in cities via this system?
Correct. So basically what you do is on your phone you install a small app. It's not public yet, but we developed it with SNCF, the French railway company. And the idea is that actually when you got the app, you see how that curve was how the phone sees you when you're walking, because the phone has an accelerometer, so how when you're walking, when you're on a bus, on a bike, and so on, and then you can automatically see the mode of transportation, and from that, automatically see CO2 emissions. So you get two things at the end of the day with kind of zero cost. You get your CO2 emissions, and you get also kind of your calories consumed. So it becomes like something like information that could promote behavioral change.
Is it only mentioned for your personal information, or can you make it a system for the city government?
Well, the point is that you give the app, and then whoever wants can use it. But then once people use it, then you got information for the city or for the country, or as big as you want.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
And all the rest you can discuss with this gentleman and the rest of you after this session and
Thanks
the break. Kalerati, thank
Thank
you very much.
Thanks.
Time to move on to Peter Miller. He's the founder and CEO of ITO World. I understand he and his colleagues are experts in the collection, management, analysis and presentation of complex transport data. And we look forward to the presentation he's prepared for us now.
It's not the first slide.
Which is ready to go. Okay.
I think they can hear me talking. Okay, I've got my notes on this machine here, so I'm going to be wandering 2, 1, 4. Isn't it hard to follow Carlo? Okay, I think we're going to have quite different talks. This is a photograph of traffic in Beijing. And I think we've been living with the private car, a transport system dominated by the private car for so long that it's hard to imagine life without it. The UK government in 2011, the Department of Transport went away and said they thought traffic would increase by 50% in the next 25 years, and there would be basically no carbon savings. A bunch of academics in the UK and in other countries believe that we've already reached peak car, and that car traffic is going to be going down. London traffic appears to have fallen by 50% in the last 10 years. I'm aware I've got Peter Hendy in the audience, and he might disagree, but there's been considerable decreases. As an information person, I see all these people sitting in metal boxes, I believe are quite expensive, getting in each other's way, and there's not a lot of communication going on about the fact that they're wanting to go in the same direction, at least at this point. There are a few buses, but they're stuck in the traffic too. I want to just look at the last sort of 10 or so years. This photograph comes from Wikipedia. Thank you very much. Wikipedia didn't exist 10 years ago. Nor did Flickr, Twitter, Facebook, Wikipedia, Open Data, Creative Commons, Google Maps, Amazon, YouTube, etc. So that's what's come in the last 10 years. What's going to come next? And I believe that transport in the information age will be as different from transport in the industrial age as that was from the agricultural age. There will be cars, but we will be using them in very different ways. And bear in mind, the Encyclopedia Britannica was first published in 1768. This year, they published it for the last time. Why? Because people don't want a physical encyclopedia anymore. They'll look it up on the web. Not only will they look it up on the web or their smartphone, they will trust a bunch of volunteers who they don't know for that information in Wikipedia, possibly. So if those are the changes that are happening elsewhere, what could be happening in our transport system? Anyone who knows... Okay, oh, sorry, I need to press that button, and then you can see what I can see there. Anyone who's followed transport knows that protest is the way, it's part of the engagement. It's part of the engagement between policy. Whether you go back to the Rebecca riots, which were in Wales in the 1840s, which were about road pricing. They were about the turnpikes and charges for using the roads. The freeway revolts in America in the 1960s, critical mass, which started in 92, which the theme was, we are traffic, we're not getting in the way of traffic, we are traffic. And then, of course, there was a petition in the UK against road pricing policies, which had 2 million signatures. So 1840s, we were talking about road pricing, we're still talking about them in 2009. One can't ignore the views of the people. And the views of people are increasingly adapted and in a very complicated social media setting. I think that road closures, are they road closures? Is this a road? Oh, hang on. No, sorry, I need to press that button. I'll get the hang of it eventually. This is called a road closure. It's actually a road opening. Because it used to be full of cars and the people were squished to the side. Now people can come out. This is New York. This is Summer Streets. It first happened in 2008. This is a very new idea. And people can enjoy a city without cars for 2 or 3 weekends. And the question is, what do they then go back and ask for the rest of the time? It's not just the US. I need to press that button. On the right, we have the Paris plage, which was first happened in 2002. So that, again, is under 10 years old, where they turn a highway into a beach. And this was the opening of, does anyone know this? This is the A40 road in Germany. When they opened it, they laid out a banqueting table of 20,000 tables, and it's in the Guinness Book of Records. 30,000 people came and enjoyed the road, walking and cycling, and they had to close access to the road because there were so many people on it, and not one of them was motorized. But the real innovation, as far as I can see, is going to come from the information technology applied onto our current transport system. A zip car is still a car, but it's not a car that we privately own. So the ownership model has changed. The zip car was started in 2000, so that's under 10 years old. A Velib is still a bicycle, but you hire it by the hour, and the Velib, I think, was 2007. High occupancy toll lanes, where you bid and the price varies according to how many people, single occupancy vehicles, want to join the high occupancy vehicle lanes. And the first one was in 1998, and there's a big scheme in the United States, which I'm very interested in, which is rolling now. It's still a road, but you pay for it in a different way. And of course, then there's information for public transport users. We work with Google. We're a supplier to Google for their public transport services in London. The one thing that will not change, regardless of virtually how much money we change at it, is the physical infrastructure. These railway lines are pretty much where the Victorians laid them down in England, and the same is true for other countries. It was trimmed down considerably in the 1960s. There are a few additions. We're talking about one high-speed line. There's one other major line, east-west rail link, which I'm interested in because I live over on the east coast. But fundamentally, I'm going to have to live with that rail network for the rest of my life. Similarly, for the road network, this is the thickness of these roads according to how many lanes there are. So you get a sense as to how much highway capacity there is. Again, even with the best will in the world and an awful lot of money, that system is going to look pretty much the same in 10 years as it does now. What will happen is this is a very interesting data set. This data set was released as open data by the UK government, and if you're in a country that's not releasing your data as open data, please start now. Because all sorts of people can go and take your data, nose around in it, and find interesting stories in it, which is really what our company does. So we have a few roads in the UK which have more than 200,000 vehicles per day going on them. I think I've got a little jobby there, yeah, just round Heathrow Airport. A bunch of them with 100 to 200,000. Generally, you need a 4-lane road to do that. And then we get down to the smaller ones for a 3-lane road and the 2-lane road. And what has happened to how we're using the road space has changed very considerably in 10 years. We've got count points, the same count points for 10 years now, coming through the system. So this is private cars and taxis, I believe, or cars and taxis. This is a change in a 9-year period from 2001 to 2010. And this area here, which is basically covers all of London, has seen a decrease of greater than 30% in the number of cars. There was a widening of the M2 here, which means that this section of the A2 has got a great big increase. I suppose this lot might be to do with widening the M25. I haven't tracked that one down. But you can go and tell the stories, and generally if you widen the road, you'll get more traffic. Widening the M25 was described to the Transport Select Committee as digging a ditch in a bog. It fills up as fast as you dig, unless you do road pricing, which we haven't done. But what about buses? Hang on, that's it. What about buses? Huge increase in buses in London. During this period, the London congestion charge was brought in. It was brought in 2003, and part of the deal was that you'd get a lot more buses. The story around the rest of the country is very mixed. We've got these red, we've got more over here, parts here, but then we've got areas where there's quite a lot of decrease. Now, I'd say that all this data requires a lot more work, a lot more understanding as to what's going on. But laying it out on a map seems to be a good start. Bicycles, the increase in cycling has been so great recently that I've had to change the scale. The plus scale, it only started to be interesting if you started to put over 100%. So the number of cycling has doubled in 9 years in London. And in London, for every 100 cars, there are now 15 bicycles. So approximately 15% of the traffic is now cycles. The area I'd like to look at now, though, is the strategic interurban transport network, because that's really where I say we need some ideas in the UK. Sorry, Mr. Baker. No, I mean, we have this model, and I think a lot of countries have the model, that we have roads, which are used for whatever vehicles want to use them, railways, and then we have airports. And you will so often hear people talk about the 3 modes of transport. So this is looking at the number of vehicles on the strategic road network only. But if you start breaking that down, you start noticing that, I'll never get the hang of this. A lot of the roads have over 80% of the vehicles on the road are private cars. And what we know is that those cars will have, most of those cars will have 1 occupant. Some will have 2 and a few will have more. Average occupancy of 1.2 to 1.6, depending on the time of day. We can see some parts, we're down to under 70% cars, but the figures are still very high. And I've got very excited in the last few years by Express Coach, which are these things. These things run between Oxford and London every 10 minutes. The fares are a quarter that they are on the railways. They produce far fewer emissions. They require no subsidy from the government, and they use the roads that already exist. Using these things, you can move 60,000 people per hour per lane, rather than 2,000. And they've got Wi-Fi, and they've got power sockets. So you can sit there and you can engage with all these information technology devices that you can't do when you're driving the car. Okay, so how is coaches supported in the UK? Okay, coaches are not allowed in the outside lane. Only private cars are. Coaches have a lower speed than the cars, and the cars are possibly getting a higher speed. And there was an M4 bus lane coming into London, which has been removed. So generally the message is, it's almost coach across Europe, to a large extent, supports despite policy rather than because of policy. If we go to very famous Transmilenio in Bogota, they take part of the highway and they make it available only to coaches, and they build these very fine interchanges. Transmilenio, year 2000. Coaches aren't fast enough. Try that one. Have you seen this? Has any people seen this? Basically it's a stretched electric 225 kilometer an hour Lamborghini. It's not made by Lamborghini, but it has a top speed of 225 miles an hour. The Superbus, it's built by Delft University. It's being trialled around the place at the moment. So how well do we use these very fine high occupancy vehicles on our roads? Well, the answer is you have to look at it. It's about between 1 in 100 and 1 in 200 vehicles going along some of these networks. And this is one of the most busy networks. This is the Oxford to London Tube. We just managed to get over 1% of the vehicles being coaches. And if we now look at change in counts. So this is looking at how the usage of the road network has changed. And what we find is that this corridor here, the number of coaches has gone down, and also around the M25. This requires further research because there's been various widening going on in the M25, as I mentioned, and there have been various road closures. Oh, I've got to hurry up. That have been going on. And so they might be a little bit flaky. Okay, hang on. I'm in a muddle now. Right, we started with China. We're going to finish with China. This is what this system launched in 2010.
This is Guangzhou, formerly known as Canton, population of about 10 to 15 million.
Guangzhou won the International Sustainable Transportation Award this year because of their remarkable new bus rapid transit system.
We promote bus rapid transit in China to solve the transportation congestion problem.
Okay, so basically in 10 years we've gone, a huge amount has changed in how we're using our roads, and I don't think that's going to stop. Thank you very much.
Microphone works after all. Okay, you've taken us to the UK. We stay in the UK, focus on London now, because our next speaker holds an undergraduate physics degree, a PhD in nanotechnology and quantum computing. He worked as a clinical medical physics researcher, and he also is a passionate musician. And he found a quite interesting, probably unique way to combine all these skills. And he will take us now on a seamless trip through London. Enjoy. Dr. Martin Ostwick.
Thank you very much. I'm a lecturer, believe it or not, at the UCL Centre for Advanced Spatial Analysis. And this isn't going to quite work. Okay. There we go. So one of the big themes that we have at CASA is open data. We're very interested in the big data, the open data that's coming out. And one of the very good data sets that we've been working on is the London bike share scheme, called by some Boris bikes, by slightly fewer Barclays bikes, Ken bikes if you're politically inclined. And Transport for London have been fantastic about releasing this data, and actually as time goes on they're releasing more and more open data describing their journeys. So we've used that to create visualizations of the path of these hire bikes through the city. Now, rather than... I'm going to show you what this looks like now, I hope. Yeah, there we go. So rather than describing in excruciating detail what's going on in this visualization and how it's produced, I can do that afterwards. If you're interested, please do come and ask me those technical questions. I'm going to give you a song which tells you about the path of a single bike through London. And this is based on real data, I should say. This is real information. If you don't know London very well, hopefully this will give you a flavour for the different parts of the city. And if you do know London, I hope you don't feel too caricatured. Another Saturday morning, hanging round King's Cross, waiting for a London bum to sit upon my seat. The sun is shining brightly, well realistically it's not. This is London after all, so it's probably rain and sleet. Now I'm moving down to Mayfair on this February day to find a gift for Valentine's. It's a couple of days away. I've been ridden to the Grand Elephant and Castle, the jewel in South London's crown, if you like roundabouts. Ride me up to the South Bank, London's Riviera, or take me down to Artie Peckham, but come on, take me out. A ride around London town can be a famine or a feast. Then another one sits down and we start heading east. We're in cool East London, bikes are in Hoxton Square, but I get laughed at in Shoreditch for my unfashionable hair. So we speed west through the best that hipsters have to show, to the West End where the older hipsters go. when they get bored of warehouses and the YBAs. They can enjoy a musical and a glass of Beaujolais. It's Saturday, so let's have a picnic up in Regent's Park. And maybe we'll go shopping for some Kensington fare. There really are a lot of 4x4s and prams around. So let's drop in for a baby chino just by Sloane Square. No sooner have I tried to have a sip of tea, another bum has got on board and rolled away with me. The day is nearly over, I must say goodbye, my friends. I've travelled seamlessly from Chelsea to the East End. We soon must part, but don't be sad, don't be filled with sorrow. There'll be another set of seats sitting on my seat tomorrow. There'll be another set of seats sitting on my seat tomorrow. Thank you very much. I assume there aren't any questions about that.
Right, thank you. I've just, in horror, seen the next speaker leave the room. I'm not sure why. But I hope he'll be back. If he's not back, shall I just move on to... there he is. I feared you may not like the song, but I don't think it has anything to do with that. So our next speaker has something to do with London Transport. He's the Commissioner of Transport for London. And I watched an interview which is about 1 or 2 years old, in which he spoke very candidly about the state of the good old London Tube, which is, as we all know, pretty old. And he said it's actually held together only by sellotape, which I find very interesting. Every time I go to London, obviously, I use the tube. And hopefully he will tell us and have some good news for us in terms of what we can expect in terms of transportation for the Summer Olympics, which will take place in a couple of months from now. So please give a round of applause to Peter Hendy.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't leave because I didn't like the song. I thought it was fascinating. I left because I thought the mayor was on the phone. Since it's the mayoral election today, I thought I'd better answer it, even if he's not the mayor tomorrow. But it wasn't, so it's okay. And that sounds great. And actually, both of the previous two speakers talking about free access to public data, one of the great things that I think we have done as a public authority is to make all this stuff available. And people are doing fantastic things with it, far better than we'd ever do, and at somebody else's expense too, which is great. So I thought I'd give you a brief flavour for the Olympic Games. It occupies a medium-sized amount of my time when I'm not thinking about the new mayor and the investment programme, and we are less than 100 days away from it. The Olympic and Paralympic Games is, of course, the largest sporting event in the world. We were lucky enough to win in 2005. That's what I think most of the time. My friend in Paris thinks most of the time he was lucky enough that we won it. But we're making real preparations, because back in 2005, one of the issues that the International Olympic Federation said to us was that the transport system in London has to be right. So for 7 years now, we've been working to make sure it is right. And what you're about to hear in a few minutes is a distillation of a slide pack, which is 140 slides, most of them maps actually, so it's not that bad. I can do that in 18 minutes, but you don't get much out of it if I do it. So there's about 12 slides, and I'll do it in about 10 minutes. But first, actually, here's a video because the Games is all about sport and sport is about sporting people. And here's what I show to my staff and my audiences about what sports people say about the importance of transport.
I really love London, and I think London's one of the greatest cities in the whole world. We are going to have the whole universe, even people from space, if they could watch, will be watching London 2012. So we've got to get it right.
The success of the Games will be down to, London Transport, about how people's experience of those games are. And that starts with being able to get to those venues.
As an athlete, you want the transport system working properly, because it's one of these things that if your friends and family can't get to the venues, A, it makes you anxious, it makes them anxious, and also the stadium's not full. At the beginning of the session, if everybody's not in there, or at the end of the session, people have got to leave early because they're worried about getting home again, it does play on your mind.
Speaking to some of the guys in my team who competed in Atlanta, they said the traffic was a nightmare. They said the organisation of transport was terrible, and it was so bad, the basketball team got to the final of the Paralympics, and their driver got lost taking them to the final. They were 45 minutes late to the biggest game of their lives.
I remember in Barcelona for one of the heats that there was a problem, and the stadium was half empty, and you're sort of looking around, hoping that you'll see Union Jacks, hoping that you'd see familiar faces, hoping that you'd have the support. And often, if that comes down to people not being able to get to those venues because they've been held up in some ways, as an athlete, you need that cheering on. You need people to be out there.
All of you guys are extremely important in making the transport system work perfectly and smoothly. I think the best way to look at it, for me, or the comparison I would make, is the comparison of a team. You guys are a team, and in order for a team to be effective, every single person has to be working together in harmony.
Yes, there will always be things that go wrong, but you learn from those mistakes. With sport, you have injuries, you have setbacks, sessions haven't gone quite so well, but that's the chance to be able to learn and make you that better person when you're delivering it at the end of the day.
I drew my strength from wanting to be the best I could. It was about putting on a good show. It was about always turning up at the start line in the best shape I could be. And knowing that you have ups and downs along the way, that you have great days and you have days that are pretty tough. It's knowing that every single thing you do, every training session that you do, contributes towards the end.
The whole world will be watching London, and this is your opportunity to show that the London transport system works efficiently. It is the bloodline of London, and you should be proud of it.
It's crucial, it's essential that we get things running smoothly, and so we can set an example to the rest of the world, show them that we're great, and show them how it's supposed to be done.
It's going to be really, really busy, and there's going to be lots of pressure, but also it's going to be an amazing experience, and just enjoy it, and be really proud that whatever you're doing is contributing to showing the world that we can put on an amazing Olympics and Paralympics.
So, I employ 27,000 people. We've shown about 22,000 of them that video. We've taken the same 22,000 around the Olympic Park. I've shown that to people, management, supervisors and staff of the dozen or 15 or so partner organisations who are going to deliver transport for the Games. Put like that, it's the hell of a challenge. It could make us very proud, but we've got to do well. So the rest of this, I'm going to tell you a bit about what we've done, and also a bit about a couple of really major outcomes, different outcomes, some investment outcomes that might be useful both for us and for the rest of the world. The first thing to say, I would do this in order of the investment and then the roads and then the public transport network. But actually, I'll put this slide in first because it does show you a bit. This is central London and London just to the east. The east is obviously on the right of the slide. And one of the reasons that this slide is in here first is to show you that unlike many Olympic Games in developed cities, this Olympic Games is in the centre of the city. It's in the centre of a medieval city. It's not on the outskirts. The Olympic Park was a wasteland of derelict industrial land, but it's only 10 or 15 minutes from central London, and some of the events are in central London themselves, including the road events, including beach volleyball, if you think that's a sport, or maybe it's a spectator maybe it's a spectator event with a bit of sport thrown in, and the archery and so on. And if you look on the right-hand side at the bottom, you'll see Greenwich Park for the equestrian events and so forth. So this is a Games within a developed city, within an old developed city. And one of our huge challenges is to shoehorn all of the Olympic traffic, all of the athletes, all of the Olympic family, and all the spectators in a public transport Games, because that's what we advertise it as into an old historic city. We have to have an Olympic route network. You have to promise the IOC an Olympic route network and deliver one. It doesn't have to be a fast road network, but it has to be one that guarantees journey times after the terrible experiences of Atlanta. So what we've done is to take the 175 kilometres of the Olympic route network, which connects the venues, it connects the hotels, the IOC on Park Lane in the West End, and we will manage it as only we can. In Beijing, they took the 5th lane of 5-lane highways and painted Olympic symbols on them. I don't have any 5-lane highways. I'm lucky to have 2-lane highways in each direction. Many of them are 1 lane in each direction. So we're going to do it differently. We're going to use technology to alter signal timings. We're going to ban right turns because we're left-hand drive. We're going to take out parking and loading bays. We're going to close some crossings. We're going to ban roadworks. We've already stopped roadworks on this network now. And it will have a few Games lanes on it, but not many. It's not much of the network, it's 1%. But in order to do that, we've got to have some profound management of people's expectations about how to travel around in these areas, and I'm going to tell you about them. And I would say, as a proprietor of only a small amount of London's roads, but the busiest ones, that this is really quite a difficult challenge, and one that you can only approach by advanced technology. We've wired some of the traffic signals that we didn't have on computer control to computer control. I now employ people who manage parts of the road network on a dynamic basis. And with luck, and also with the management of demand and the management of people's expectations, we will deliver the Olympic family to where they need to be in the times we've guaranteed. Now, I said that first because it gives you a map. The next thing is to say that actually we've had a lot of investment. The government has put in a lot of money to things, all of which are beneficial in the longer term, because the Olympic Park is in inner London. It is already becoming the focus for economic development. We've had £6.5 billion worth of transport upgrades, including 2-line upgrades on the Tube, a brand new station at King's Cross Tube, and the mainline station developed really quite substantially. Complete overhaul of Stratford, brand new services on the Docklands Light Railway and the orbital overground network. And Stratford itself, as the principal venue in the Olympic Park, is connected by 11 different rail or metro services. We're also enhancing the public transport system. We're introducing a 3rd peak, a late night peak on the metro, on the Tube, to take people home, and utilising the high-speed line from St Pancras to France for domestic services from St Pancras to Stratford in 7 minutes. I'm taking 3,000 people out of my staff who sit behind desks to stand in stations and in bus stations to help the public. All my management are expected to do that, and if you're lucky, you might even see me doing it. Why are we doing it? Well, actually, why did we want it? Why does any city want the Olympics? Well, because actually you do get an economic boost. You get an economic boost because every hotel room in London will be full for months. You get an economic boost because people come, as my colleague in Vancouver said, they don't just come if they've got tickets to the events, they come because your city is a place to come, and indeed we're devoting quite a lot of effort to contemplating how we manage the enormous numbers of people who may just come to the city in order to enjoy the atmosphere. And what that means is that the legacy is not only the capacity that's been delivered by the enormous investment for the future of East London and the future of what will be the development of the venues post the Olympics, but actually to develop the economic heart of the city and its impact on the UK economy. That means a message to business which says don't shut down during the Games, but utilise the massive commercial potential. But it also means that there will be a lot of extra journeys in the city, an extra 3 million journeys on top of the 24 million that we have by all the modes, including walking and cycling. And that demands some real management about expectation and about what people do. In terms of the road network, 70% of journeys will not be affected, and in terms of the metro, 2/3 of the journeys won't be affected. But what that means is that those other proportions, the purple proportions on these pie diagrams, will be affected. And some of them will be affected quite strongly, because if you attempt to drive through central London and you encounter the Olympic route network, if you're attempting to drive around the Olympic Park, if you're attempting to drive across southwest London on the day the cycle race goes through it, you're going to have, there's going to be quite a big impact. And if you're trying to use the Jubilee line or the Central line to Stratford for the Olympic Park on the busiest days, it's going to be very crowded. And we've had to find ourselves as a public transport, as a transport organisation, not just a public transport organisation, actually finding ourselves telling people about this to manage their expectations about the way that you move around London during this astonishing period. So we've been engaging, hang on, let's try that again. So we've been engaging in a massive programme of education, starting with business and now moving. This is an example of a website called getaheadofthegames.com. These are examples by day of the Olympics, because every day is different events in different places, different timings, trying to tell people, not trying but actually telling people about what's going to happen in advance of them travelling, so that they can check where they're going and decide how to go there in order to avoid the worst crushes. If you're a spectator, you'll get a free travel card for London. You'll also get access to the Spectator Journey Planner, and it will advise you to do journeys which you might not do as a Londoner, because if you come into Paddington, which is the station for the West of England in London, you might think that you should get the Bakerloo line, change at Baker Street and go to Stratford on the Jubilee line. Well, we won't advise you to do that, because it's going to be very busy. We're going to advise you to go on the Hammersmith and City line, go to West Ham and walk into the Olympic Park the back way. We know that spectators will do that because they're sensible people. The bigger challenge is to get Londoners and people who live and work in London to change their journeys and change their timings. So we've been extensively advertising Get Ahead of the Games as a means of telling people beforehand. This isn't actually the first thing that we've done, though here is an example. See if I can make it work. Here is an example of the publicity that we're now using and we will use right through to the end of the Paralympic Games on the 9th of September. And the messages are simple, but not ones that a transport authority would normally say. The message is not, don't avoid London altogether, stay in bed, don't go out. That's not the message. The media sometimes characterise it as that, but they're mean and malicious, as all of the worst newspapers are. And actually, it's not that message at all. And you can see it's not that message, actually, if you look behind the 4 words in purple. The message is actually check. And the message is also this, that you can reduce the amount of travelling that you do by working from home or conference calling, or you can retime your travel. I've become a sort of local hero, because actually my advice to Londoners on the busiest days of the Games in the evening is go and have a beer before you go home. In fact, I've been invited to the Parliamentary All-Party Beer Association for their annual dinner, merely by my support of the brewers. But actually, it's quite a sensible piece of advice. London Bridge Station on the day of the equestrian event at Greenwich with 50,000 people is going to be very difficult to access at 6 o'clock. But if you go for a beer and actually look at the screens in the pub, by the time you've done that, it'll be 7:30 and you'll get home. You can reroute your journey by taking a less busy line, or you can cycle, or you can walk. For many journeys, it will be the quickest way to go. And actually, if you think about that message and you think about where that might take you, there's a real opportunity to persuade people actually that shorter journeys in urban areas can be taken by walking and cycling, and they'll find it quicker, easier, and actually healthier. Now, we didn't start with that information to the public. Where we started from was with business, because most businesses of any size do contingency planning. They plan for the power being off, they plan for their IT systems falling down, and here's an occasion when they need to plan for their staff finding it difficult to get to work. This is a picture of Canary Wharf, which is a new office development in East London. It's near the Olympic Park. Its principal form of public transport is the Jubilee line, which will serve the Olympic Park and Excel and a number of other Olympic venues. And there are 115,000 people who work at Canary Wharf. We've covered nearly all of them by going to their employers and saying, look, it's going to be a busy time. What can you do? Can you get people to work at home? Can you get people to go on holiday for a bit? Can you get people to work if you're a multinational company or or a UK-wide company in other offices. And do you know what? They're quite sensible. They've all planned to do that. Can you give them breakfast and get them in early? Can you alter their shifts so that they can go home late? That isn't saying to bankers, abandon your trading floors. It's saying, take your back office people and get them to work differently or somewhere else for a few days. And do you know what? Canary Wharf as a property company have embraced this because they've seen an opportunity for their on-site restaurants and bars and their shops to stay open later and do more business. And we've now got nearly 1 million people covered by specific travel advice for their businesses, either dealing with big businesses individually or dealing with groups of businesses like brewers and pubs and so forth, covered by this in order to get them to think their way through a very busy time on the transport network, not to damage their business, but actually to enable their business to prosper and grow. And it's really important because actually, as we said, London is going to be full. The current figures say that 46% of all businesses in London expect to be able to retime, reroute, revise the mode or reduce travel by between 10 and 30%. The other great benefit, because those I think are going to be legacy benefits, if I can get a permanent change in the way people behave at busy periods on the transport networks, whether road or rail, then actually we have the opportunity of reutilising capacity at much less cost than building new capacity. But the other great issue which we've alighted on is freight and logistics. As a transport organisation, we haven't so far had very much to do with freight and logistics, but that's changing because our city depends on the delivery of goods, the delivery of mail, the collection of goods and mail, the delivery of all the things that you need for life in a world city. And we found ourselves engaging with a whole variety of audiences. We and the other people involved in regulating those industries, huge amount of support from the traffic commissioners who licence heavy goods vehicles and buses and coaches, involving the industries themselves. The Chief Executive of DHL Europe is the chair of my freight working group. We've written to everybody who operates freight vehicles in Britain to say it's going to be different in London. And our plan is this, which is that actually there's a lot you can do with rerouting goods and services, but you have to do it to them because they're not bright enough to do it themselves, unlike your customers on human customers. So what you have to do is to advise people, if you're going to get office furniture delivered, if you need photocopier paper, it's not a very good idea to have it delivered in the Olympic fortnight. Get it delivered before, get a bit more delivered before, get less delivered before and get more delivered between the Olympics and the Paralympics. We've set out maps of the city with where the congestion is for every day of the Games and the days before it in order that people can address that. The other issue, of course, is that the city depends on perishable goods. It depends on food and drink, and actually, crucially, if you think about it, on newspapers. And the funny old thing about one of these experiences is whilst the media are busy writing terrible stories about how the place is going to come to a standstill, actually, the same people's circulation departments have been working for months to make sure they can get the newspapers out and sell them because that's their business. And on the day that we went to see the Evening Standard, which is London's only evening paper, and were faced by a load of incredulous journalists about whether people would plan in advance, I asked for the circulation manager, who is a rather big, rotund chap with braces, to come into the meeting, and he sat there silently. And they all said, nobody's going to do this planning, it's going to be a disaster. So I said to this chap, what are you doing? And he said, I'm planning like hell because I've got to get 700,000 copies of my paper out and I've got to get them to an audience that's going to need the sports results. And I think that actually says it all, which is that again in the freight and logistics industries you do have people who really want their businesses to succeed, and if you work with them you can achieve it. We're looking for nighttime deliveries. We've done some experiments to show that modern goods vehicles can deliver at night with intelligent drivers and intelligent staffing. They don't cause noise. They don't cause people not to sleep at night. It is going to work. And I'm very confident, actually, that the result of this in London will not only be that the city continues with the supply of goods and services, but that we effect a permanent change in the way that people think about the distribution of goods and services. And if I can get even 5 or 10% of the city's goods delivered at night rather than during the day or in the evenings and early mornings, we will just make a fundamental change in the way that the road system works. So, lastly, are we on track? Well, you can see I'm quietly confident. The IOC visited London for their final inspection back in March. They were nice to us. They didn't say everything was all right. You won't know that until the closing day of the Paralympics, and after that I'm going on holiday, probably for a month. If it doesn't go well, I might go on holiday forever. But I think it will go well, actually, because all the infrastructure is built. Not only is the stadium built, all that transport infrastructure is now built and operating. We've been working flat out on these information campaigns, both with passengers and with employers, and about goods and services to make sure people understand what's going on. We're testing our systems, but more importantly, we're testing people's knowledge about what they think is going to happen. And what we think is that actually very, very many people do now understand this, and that actually our passengers being intelligent, our road users being intelligent, businesses wanting to succeed, will make this work in a very difficult environment. And where that leads you to say is that actually there are some real legacies to the Olympics, quite apart from the stadium and quite apart from the infrastructure, which is hopefully the behavioural change. You can come for yourselves and see whether it works in July and August and September for the Paralympics, and you can also come and have an absolutely wonderful time for the world's greatest sporting event. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Henny. It is very frustrating to fit so many speakers with so much interesting and fascinating information into 1 hour. It's impossible, and on top of it we inherited a good 10 minutes overtime from a previous session, so I'm very grateful if you can allow another 10 minutes of your time to stay here with us in order to pay attention to Dr. Yahak O, Vice President, Korea Transport Institute. He'll talk to us about broadband, the technology that creates new possibilities for infrastructure and transport systems. Thank you very much.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you very much. My presentation will focus on some research initiatives for promoting seamless transport system through information technology. I think the ultimate goal of seamless transport is to improve the convenience of transport system by adapting infrastructure facilities, mode operation, travel information, and fare structure for the sake of travelers, not suppliers or operators. Here, I would like to introduce three distinct and somewhat challenging ideas being taken by my research institute in the last 3 to 5 years. The first innovative idea is to upgrade the railway stations or the transport terminals in terms of in terms of the facilities or the location-based the information system, or furthermore the management facility management systems to promote the use of public transport. An advanced connectivity and transport center is designed with a variety of mobile-based services, including real-time transport information, location-based intermodal connectivity, and indoor navigation service in certain areas within railway stations or bus terminals. Users might be able to interact with the information center on their nomadic or mobile devices according to where they are located within the indoor facilities. All they need to access would be a convenient information of how to make a smart route choice on demand with networked connectivity utilizing, for example, Wi-Fi within the designated areas. The pedestrian location tracking system utilizing Wi-Fi and image processing technology has been a key technology so that the advanced intermodal connectivity center can provide a customized context awareness service on demand for users based on where they are. This service is now ready in the designated testbed site in Korea. Later, I will show you a video demonstrating such advanced information center. The second idea is the cloud transport system, which takes its name from cloud computing. This cloud transport system combines car sharing. I'm sorry, I didn't change it. Car sharing and mode of public transport to satisfy the individual transport mobility. Also, it combines some advantages of private cars and public transport mode. It eventually promotes owning less and sharing more. This has great potential as a new transport mode for the future. It also, we think it also helps to promote electric vehicle as a kind of business model. The cloud transport system is based on the intermodal journey planner and reservation technology as a kind of total transport service. The final idea is a reform project to integrate the urban and intercity transport for users' point of view. What is planning in my institute in terms of increasing the ridership of public transport twice, more roughly twice, in the next few years would be to build a hub and spoke system of integrating public transport networks, terminal facilities, travel information, and payment system for the sake of travelers. The project pursuing one nation, one transport city is now targeting to redesign existing intercity public transport network based on the high-speed railway network, KTX, which is connecting major cities of the country within 1.5 hours by year of 2020. Meanwhile, a new technology is now taken into consideration to be developed titled Mobile All Transit, which provide an integrated mobile information and payment system for intermodal journey by public transport, real-time scheduling coordination, and a discount fare system for transferors are taken into account as a key service. Users might be able to utilize the mobile at hand to their itinerary and e-ticket simultaneously according to the request of their journeys. This technology and service would be realized soon or later, I believe, as a new application of what we are trying to get for one nation, one transport city in Korea. Now I'll come back to the 5 minutes intermodal video showing intermodal connectivity center. Okay.
Smart Garatagi for a smart green travel society. The Transfer Center, where transferring between various modes of public transportation and automobiles takes place, is transforming into a large-scale integrated facility combining shopping and culture. Currently, users of the Intermodal Transfer Center face increased inconvenience because of the lack of adequate information for the complicated facilities and long transfer routes, as well as a lack of high-quality services. To solve such problems, the Korea Transport Institute has formulated the Intermodal Connectivity and Transfer System Research Group and has been conducting research and development of 3 particular technology sectors. In the second sector, Integrated Intermodal System Development and Testbed Establishment, a smart Karatagi service has been developed which provides various information provision services and operation and management for those who use and manage the Intermodal Center respectively. The Smart Karatagi service consists of Karatagi Mobile for user convenience and the Karatagi Center for efficient operation. And in the future, we aim to develop a system in which users can experience a smart travel society through various information devices in the center, such as smartphones. We monitor the pedestrian circumstances by analyzing the intermodal center's CCTV footage and determine the density, course of movement, and speed of pedestrians. We determine the location of a pedestrian indoors with Wi-Fi and accurately pinpoint the location of users in the complex transfer center. We employ 3D GIS integrated monitoring for efficient monitoring and operation. All information on subsystems comprising the Karatagi Center, including real-time public transit interconnection and transfer information, and pedestrian monitoring information, are linked and managed through an integrated database. When a user requests emergency aid, we provide a service that detects the user's exact location through an integrated monitoring device, monitors the user's situation with a nearby CCTV, and employ personnel to take action. Especially in the case of unforeseen emergencies, we provide a system that proposes emergency response procedures predetermined along the guidelines to station operators. Karatagi Mobile provides information on users' location determined by the Karatagi Center's location positioning system on a mobile device. You can search for your destination and access optimal mode choices and routes according to real-time transfer information through a mobile device. You can also search through the various commercial and convenient facilities of the Intermodal Center complex and access the best route from your current location to your destination. We provide context awareness-based smart trip planning services, which provides the best mode choices and routes through alarms and redirecting services according to the pedestrian's varying situations. We induce drivers to conveniently use public transport by providing parking reservations, parking guide services, and identification services of vehicle locations. The intermodal connectivity and transfer system preserves users' rights of way and reduces transferring time waste using various advanced technology. This provides a more pleasant and convenient environment for public transit users. By making systematic and efficient operation of the transfer center possible, and by reducing property damage and loss of lives in unforeseen circumstances, we are able to take user efficiency to a whole new level.
When we took the research about 5 or 6 years ago, at that time the smartphones was not actually not in the market. So we had a lot of criticisms about what is the practical the usage of these technologies from the peoples. But soon after that, I think it's now the smartphones are most popular, the mobile phones for the people. So the technology is so fast actually changing actually. So in the video is the karatagi. Karatagi means the transfer in Korean. So we just finished our 5 years the project, and then we can now is all the technology. We have developed many related technologies for the integrated interconnective information center, and then now such technologies are now available and then now in service in some test bed actually. I finished the presentation here. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Oh. I mentioned right at the beginning there was no time to take questions. We ran over time because There were a lot of speakers, and as I said, we inherited some 10 minutes from previous sessions. But there is a break still going on outside. All the speakers are still here, as I can see. And if they're not, I think they have a couple of minutes to take questions if you have, but individually, so you can meet them here or outside. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much to all the speakers. That concludes the Transport Innovation Talks.